This one really has my interest because these are the kind of people that went over to Beck's rally. Senator Waterloo Demint out of South Carolina, his lesson on hate and discrimination is now officially in session. You see, he's doubling down on his claim that gays, lesbians, unmarried pregnant women should be banned from teaching in public schools in America. We got a lesson for him tonight at the Ed Show. Thank you, Reverend. Coming up, Senator Waterloo makes a lot of people sick when you hear this. He just said that gays and sexually active single women should not be teachers in public schools. What a creep. Welcome back to the Ed Show, and thanks for watching tonight. Now, these are the kind of people that went to the big rally on August 28th. There is a difference. Senator Waterloo, Jim Demint of South Carolina, is really playing to the Tea Party and crowd hard by returning to an outrageous position that he took when he first ran for Senate back in 2004. I find this absolutely appalling. At a church rally on Sunday in South Carolina, he said he doesn't think homosexuals should be allowed to teach in public schools, and neither should sexually active pregnant single women. 6 years ago, he threw single pregnant women in there as well. Yesterday, he also complained about no one backing him on those comments, saying, quote, "When I said those things, no one came to my defense, but everyone would come to me and whisper that I shouldn't back down. They don't want government purging their rights and their freedom to religion." Senator, to me, it seems by banning single mothers and homosexuals from teaching school, you are the one purging people's rights and freedoms. This is what the Tea Party crowd is all about. This is their leader. This is a guy who has embraced their candidates. This is what that rally was all about back in late August. Let me bring in Mike Papantonio, host of the nationally syndicated Ring of Fire radio show. Mike, what do you make of all of this? I find it absolutely outrageous that in 2010, this is what the United States Senate produces.
No surprises. Jim Demint has always been the go-to guy for crazy talk for the Republicans. When Republican leadership is too embarrassed to say it themselves, they have Jim Demint out there saying it. For example, when they get in their colicky baby mode and they talk about how government's too big, Jim Demint was the guy talking about how all of IRS should be abolished and that corporations shouldn't have to pay as much tax as the average working family. If you remember, Demint was the guy who argued that there should be no minimum wage law in America. Republican leadership, Ed, is too embarrassed to say the things that Jim Demint will say. He's the guy that made the argument with a straight face that when we ship jobs overseas, that it's better for our economy. Republican leadership couldn't say that, but they could have Jim Demint go out forward and say it himself. Yeah. The interesting thing about Demint is that he's part of this moral card crowd. Interesting story, I know you remember it, the C Street crowd, called the Family. The Family was this group, Jim Inhofe, Sam Brownback, John Thune, John Ensign, all of these moral card guys that said that God was telling them how they should engage in politics. That they were a tool of God. I'm not making this up. If you go back and look at those stories about C Street and talk about the Family, he was one of these guys, sure. Ed. Unfortunately for the Family, they had Mark Sanford, who was traveling all over the country with his Argentina honey. It didn't work out on the moral card. Or John Ensign didn't work out on the moral card before he had to confess that he was having an affair in Las Vegas. But this guy's shameless.
Well, Mike,
he's shameless.
Should we as Americans bear to think what it would be like if the Republicans and leaders like this from the state of South Carolina were to ever get a filibuster-proof Senate? What kind of country would we have then? I mean, this is their position. He wants to discriminate, and that's exactly what I talked about at the rally, and you saw the tape just a few moments ago. They want to discriminate. They openly admit they want to discriminate against Americans who pay tax, who live in this country, who live by the laws. That doesn't matter. It's a moral code that the righties in this country want to write for this country and discriminate against people. I find it absolutely appalling. And for Jim Demint to come out and say, well, they were whispering it to me. Jim, give me some names, will you? Who's whispering? Who wants to stand up and say that they were whispering to Jim Demint? I think this crowd is horribly dangerous.
Understand, what might have been whispering is this is a crowd, I'm not making this up, this is a crowd who says publicly that they are talking to God about how they should lead this country. Now, as far as the exclusion issue, when you spoke there at the memorial, and you talked about the division in America, and that is who is part of the club and who isn't part of the club. That crowd understood that what leadership for the Republicans want is a gated community, Ed, and it's not a gated community that all Americans can come through. It's a gated community that's led by these elitists. I mean, there's no other way to describe it.
That's exactly right.
And when you said that, the crowd responded to it because they understood that in this gated community the Republicans want to build, most Americans won't be invited through the gates.
Mike Papantonio, great to have you with us. Thanks for your support. Thanks for being there on Saturday. I appreciate it, brother.
Thank you for being there.